Okay. I'm going to trust the internet and Windows. I do have to tell on myself, though. I was doing yard work earlier, and I got a little overzealous with my clipper, and I sawed right through my my line that runs out to the studio. And I literally, when it happened, my heart sunk. So if we start dropping frames, for those of you watching the stream, my fault. But the yard work's done. And we are live.
When you said that, I thought you were going to go, like, I cut through, like, a body part or a finger, and I got so scared. I was like,
so I won't be able to hit the mouse with the usual finger. Yeah. I did actually do that as a kid. I was doing yard work. No. Yeah, I was trimming hedges, and I've got a scar on, like, that finger. I cut the end of it off. It was really bad.
Oh, well, I'm glad that that's not what happened today.
Yes, me too. That would be awkward. I'd be like, I'm going to go to the hospital as soon as we got your character all sorted out. So, ladies and gentlemen of the internet, welcome back to MythBrigade. We are streaming for the second time this weekend, which is awesome. I'm here with Lenora, who is herself a GM, so I'm under a lot of pressure with this campaign. A fantastic artist, and I'm hoping we can persuade her to make some character portraits. And an all-star role player. So we're going to make Lenora's character for the Savage Worlds campaign. That's why we're here at the MythBrigade Saloon, drinking whiskey. So, well, we did. The last one seemed to work out pretty well. I think you guys are generally together with your concepts and whatnot. Tell me about your character concept, just at a very high level. What are you going for?
So, I did a lot of thinking, and it's actually funny because I watched Byron's stream, and he kind of said the same thing that I've been dealing with. So I had kind of like 3 archetypes that I was bouncing around for a bit, but I finally kind of settled on one, and she is I guess the archetype would be the marksman, but I definitely took some inspiration from, like, the old Lone Ranger in the West, kind of a lone gunslinging type girl. A little bit out of touch with society, not necessarily an outlaw, but probably someone that, like, people don't know too much about, and she likes to keep it that way. Pretty
mysterious then.
Yeah.
Very cool. Now, why did she head out west? Was she born and raised out west? Like, what or is she out there? And we don't want to spoil it, right? But is she out there trying to get away from society?
I think she definitely was born out there, and I think that's part of where I was kind of like going back and forth with the idea of, like, I think she might have been like an illegitimate child or something of someone, some I don't want to say, like, what's the Western equivalent of, like, a noble or something, like a rich, like, baron, like an
or
whatever.
Land baron, old cattle baron or something like that. Yeah. That's
but
cool.
I imagine that she might be like the bastard child with maybe even like a native or something, like someone who's less people would frown upon her heritage.
Yeah, I could see that. This beautiful Native American woman, and the sort of cattle baron has a tryst and denies any connection because maybe the money's not even his, right? Maybe the wife, his wife is actually, her family's rich or something, and so he really didn't want that to come out, which gives me a really cool hook. I love that. I'm making that's very cool. I love when you guys start talking about characters, because then I'm like, oh, I can campaign off that. Very cool. What about, so obviously you're human, and you get an extra edge for that, that, right? So you start with an edge just for being human. What did you do for hindrances?
So hindrances, I did a major hindrance is curious. She wants to know everything. So I'm imagining that she's someone who's probably gotten into trouble snooping where she shouldn't belong in the past. And that probably has carried over into her getting involved in some stuff that, like, maybe she's made a couple enemies or has at least pissed somebody off somewhere just by, like, sticking her nose in where it did not belong.
Nice. So she's the one that's just going to jump in just for curiosity's sake, not even personal benefit, but, like, poke into situations she probably shouldn't even observe. I like
Absolutely.
That a lot. Very cool. I could see that getting you guys into a lot of trouble. I look forward to that. So you just took the one major, or did you load up with all 4?
Yeah, no, I did. So I did the major is curious, and then she has a bad habit. She's a heavy smoker.
Oh, nice. She smokes cigars or cigarettes, and what is it? Or both?
Yeah, I imagine just like little rolled cigarettes. So she's just always, smoking something, little chimney over there. And then her last one, which again was, so I took 1 major, 2 minor, which the habit of smoking, and then the third or final hindrance was cautious. So although she's curious, she's like always like, oh, I don't know, like, do I want to stick my hand in the jar? Should I have like an escape plan for this? So it's like kind of a weird dichotomy between like, her being like, I totally want to go check this out, but should I?
Or we are absolutely going to get involved with this, but guys, we got to have a plan, right? Like we got to have and everybody's like, what? Why would we even do that? Because we have to do it, but we got to have a plan. I like that. That should be funny. You should probably talk to yourself a lot in that situation.
Absolutely.
So
I imagine she talks to, I did spring for a horse with the starting cash, and not an El Cheapo horse. She's got a good horse. So I imagine she talks to her horse quite a bit.
Outstanding. Have you thought of a name for the horse?
I have not yet. No.
Gotta have one. That's your homework. You gotta have a name for that horse. Very cool. How long have you had the horse, and where'd you get it? Did you just buy it from just a horse baron or something like that?
I don't know. I feel like she probably would have, gone, and I feel like the horse is something that's so important, especially for someone who is kind of out on their own and like out in the desert. So she probably went to like a breeder or someone who knows their horses, and again dropped the appropriate amount of cash on a good horse.
Yeah, nice. That's very cool, because Mr. Dobbs is going to be fighting with his. I have a feeling. I can't wait. Nice. So that gave you 4 points then, basically, that you could use from your hindrances. So how did you use those? Did you buy edges? Did you increase attributes? What did you do?
Yeah, so what I did was I did 10 in agility. So she's starting with 10 in agility, and that gives also for 10 for shooting. Because again, kind of went with that marksman. I think it was actually one of the archetypes from the Savage Worlds kind of core rules. So 10 agility, D6 in smarts, spirit, strength, and vigor. So it's pretty even right there.
Yep.
But basically, she's all about being fast and knowing how to shoot.
Nice. And where did she learn how to shoot? Like, where did that, because obviously kind of, now out west, the at least the perspective that Deadlands takes is that it's pretty much, just sort of a melting pot of gender and race and whatever. It's all kind of free for all because it's the lawless West, and people just kind of, come together. But how did she learn how to shoot and get so good with it?
Well, I imagine that she kind of, again, growing up without a father, might have been forced to kind of have like almost like a mentor or something who would have taught her a little bit about this stuff. So I imagine at some point someone kind of sat her down and was like, listen, you're going to have to learn how to defend yourself and, make your way in the world. And no better way to defend yourself than knowing how to shoot someone before they can even see you. So
nice. So is she a rifle shoot? What's her thing? Is it a rifle or pistols? Like, is it 6 guns or what?
Yeah, so she has a Kult Dragoon, and she carries that with her all the time just for a little bit of protection, but the preferred weapon is a Winchester rifle, so nice. She'll be toting that around.
Take them out before they can see her coming. That's pretty awesome. They're up there on the ridge. Very, very cool.
That actually was so I took for edges steady hands, so she can shoot while she rides.
Oh, nice. Okay. And so what other edges did you take? So that, they gave you basically, you get your free edge, and then you could buy, I suppose, if you got 2 edges. Well, no, you said you used some of your points for attributes. So what other edge did you take?
So the one, again, that came, I kind of just did the marksman
Shit,
one.
I asked you that, didn't I?
Huh?
Did I already ask you that? I did.
Well, I think so, and I was a little bit confused about this. You can correct me if I'm wrong, because again, I'm still kind of learning the Savage Worlds. But it came with alertness, I think, was the one. So alertness is a +2 to notice checks, and then the additional edge was the steady hands, I think. I don't know.
Yes. Got it. So then, as far as skills, like, how did you take because you kind of wind up with your 12 points basically, where you can kind of do what you like. What did you do there?
Shooting.
Shooting. That's awesome.
All about shooting.
Yep.
And then also, of course, notice and a taunt was one of them as well. So I took taunt. I figure
kind of shit starter.
To
you come in and start some shit and then shoot them in the face. That's awesome.
I think more so just because, like, especially being a woman out west, if somebody says something smart, or sarcastic or shitty to her, I think she kind of like leans into it a little bit, and she's like, "Now I know you're not talking to me about that." Like, gets a little bit edgy and just a little bit puts the hand on the pistol.
yeah, that's pretty awesome. And then I like the idea too that you could kind of leverage that to tip a situation in your favor and kind of knock someone off their sort of emotional balance, almost Bard style, but without doing emotional damage. That's cool.
Laugh only.
So then you work through sort of drive statistics and all that. And what kind of gear is she toting a whole bunch of stuff? Is she pretty minimalistic? Like, how'd that work out? Pretty
minimal. For now, I mean, obviously the clothing, boots, duster, chaps, work shirt. Gotta have the tobacco, obviously, because smoking.
Yep. That's right.
I mean, it's pretty basic stuff besides the horse, saddle, and the guns, ammo. Other than that, I don't think she travels with a lot. Eventually, I would hope that we come across some extra cash so that we can get like the essentials like bedroll and stuff. And for now, I kind of didn't do that, so she might not be super prepared to be out in the wild right now.
So when she's traveling, she just sort of leans up against a rock and falls asleep or something with her tattered hat kind of pulled over her eyes. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
What motivates this character? So, well, actually, let me back up. What is this character's name? Do you know yet? Have you sorted it out?
Yeah. So she goes by, her name's Ashley Butcher, but she goes by Ash.
Nice.
Ashley Ash Butcher.
I love the Butcher. That's just and as the character grows, maybe you come to be known as the Butcher for all the people you're shooting. That's very cool. Okay, so what motivates Ash?
Well, I think a lot of it would have to do with her kind of proving that she can run with the boys. A little bit. Like there's always a little bit of that. Because she's a woman, being a gunslinger out in the West, there's always going to be like different obstacles there and different challenges. So I think mostly for her, it's kind of proving that she can stand alone and she is, kind of a hardened gunslinger. Although I don't think she goes out of her way to prove it. I think it's more of like a passive thing where she's just kind of like, I don't need anybody else. Got my own back. So kind of just
I could see her
getting a leg up
taunt.
On the world.
Right. I could see her using that sort of taunt capability, that innate ability to be real sarcastic and dry, right? To kind of push the buttons of someone and tip them over the edge and kind of drive them maybe even to starting the fight. But she's definitely the one to finish it, kind of thing. Like,
absolutely.
Very, very cool. So then, does she have a major sort of? So she's out there kind of to prove herself. Now, is that driven by wealth? Is that driven by something that happened in her past that leaves her feeling like she needs to prove herself? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think she's definitely a little bit bitter and has kind of a chip on her shoulder because, again, I imagine that, like, her mother was probably taken advantage of it, and that's kind of how she came to be. So she definitely has a little bit of, like, a spiteful kind of, like, vengeance. And, again, kind of, I think what drives this character for me is obviously she wants to gain, material wealth and benefits and kind of, go out on her own and get make her way in the world, but also just because that's going to be the best revenge for, what happened to her mother and how she came to be, and just kind of proving that she doesn't need anybody else.
Does she have any connection back to her Native American heritage at all? Is it clear if you're looking at this character that maybe she might have some Native American blood? Like what does that look like?
I definitely think so. And I think just aesthetics wise, like I picture this person as someone who you wouldn't innately like if you saw them from a distance, you wouldn't be like, oh, that girl up there on that horse. Because I'm imagining, like, again, big duster, rifle and, everything. and then hat down. Imagine too, like Old West, and weirdly now in COVID times with the face mask up over the face.
Yeah,
so
exactly. Yeah.
very tan, kind of dark skin, weathered from riding in sun, and kind of downplays the femininity a little bit, but it definitely is there.
There's like that striking. I've always found so. My mother was actually a quarter Native American, and I've some of our relatives, like I see these old pictures, and I'm like, my God, like the certain people just have this certain beauty to them, right? Does she have that, or is she just all hard, or is she like, is there that kind of edgy, but sort of that allure?
I mean, I think that most of the allure would be from not like knowing.
Yeah.
Because I imagine that she's someone who would kind of like, wait until the very last moment to like take the hat and the mask and like, all the gear off.
Shit. Yeah. Has she ever done a crime? Has she ever done a crime that maybe some shit like that happened? Where I just picture like maybe she's in a tussle and somebody pulls down that bandana and is like, whoa, oh, wait, what? Has that ever happened to her, you think?
I definitely think so. Especially, I feel like when she was younger, probably getting into some scraps and like kind of figuring out like how to, use guns and essentially make her way. Like, I imagine that she probably was a little bit of a tomboy, getting into like, fist fights. And I don't think she's the most like physically adept person. So obviously probably got the crap kicked out of her quite a few times.
And maybe, what, I love that. So what you think about that, right? Like at kind of a, late teens or something, that happens. She comes back to, maybe it's a ranch hand or something that, that was her mentor. I'll let you figure that one out. But she comes back to him or her, either way, and bloodied up and maybe a loose tooth or something. And they're like, yeah, you're not exactly going to be a fighter. Let me show you these things. All right. And that was that. Yeah, I love that. That's very cool. So as we, and like I was telling Byron, I'm going to do this sort of audio drama thing that I did for the wind up of Tides of Nurgle for this. It's going to be hard because I'm going to have to talk like this a lot, and I only got this one voice, and even girls are going to sound like this in our campaign. So, but anyway, so I love that I can represent her as a bit of an enigma in the group. Like everyone will generally know each other. But what I'm wondering is how long they've known each other, and maybe some of them don't realize that you're a girl, right? Like maybe that's just Ash. You don't mess with Ash. Ash doesn't show his face. That's
definitely cool. Kind of the vibe I was going for. I mean, honestly, too, I think that it is, especially, being like a shooter, like a shoot 'em up kind of Western thing. I feel like Ash would probably do more talking just by quietly staring at somebody and kind of judging them a little bit, and then again like just quiet little stuff like putting the hand on the gun and then like disappearing and you're trying to talk to them, just be like, where did Ash go? And they're all like sticking their nose into somewhere it doesn't belong.
Do you have any friends? So or are you kind of open to that? Like once someone realizes, so maybe it's Dobbs or some other character, like would you think that Ash is a friendly person or just complete loner?
I think Ash is good-natured in a way where like they're not looking to make enemies, so they can definitely be friendly. And I think they like having someone who, around who they at least can like, again, like if they're going to have to fall asleep out on the trail, it's nice to know that someone isn't immediately going to rob them or, steal the horse or whatever. So having that's definitely something they do seek out, but not needing it is part of what makes them who they are.
That's awesome. I'm gonna give, and I gotta think about this. I usually do this for all of our campaigns, but I want to give you a bit of a special edge in that maybe there's been some level of understanding of the sort of Native American language, and I'm trying to think where I'm going to set the campaign, so I'll sort that out. But I think she's got a bigger connection to those people, not like a social one where she can rally an army, but enough that if you're sort of there, like you could say a few words. In the native tongue. I think that would kind of really help to round out that longing for her, for sort of that connection to those folks. What do you think about that? Like trying to have her reaching out to them?
Yeah, I definitely always imagined too, like, I guess kind of the character concept here was someone who could kind of move in and out of territories, maybe that other people couldn't. So yeah, maybe just having like an unspoken agreement of like, oh, it's Ash, like Ash gets to pass through this territory, because we knew, her mother or whatever at some point. And I think that I'm super excited that you would be willing to do something like that. But that was,
yeah, I think it's cool.
It's not like intentional, but I definitely think it would add to whatever's going
does.
on.
And as so there's only 2 of 4, potentially 5. I'm not so sure about the 5th one. We'll see. But the story that's emerging in my head hinges a little bit on that kind of connection. I think I think that could help out a lot. What is Ash's biggest fear?
I think no matter how much
hang on. 1 second. I got the same audio problem I had. I'm going to throw this thing in the pool when I'm finished. So I'm going to do this. Hey, Internet, I'm going to do the unplugging the thing in and plugging the thing in that makes everything go to hell in a handbasket. So give me a second. Fuck. Hi, are you still with me?
I'm still with you.
Yay. Hey, Internet. That worked out a lot better than the last one did. So if you have the Rode AI-1, purify it with fire or run over it with your car. But whatever you do, don't attempt to use it for a stream with voice meter because the two piss each other off. Okay, so I was asking what Ash's... I'll edit that out unless it's funny and then I'll leave it. What was Ash's biggest fear?
I think Ash's biggest fear, no matter how much they want to kind of, be that lone ranger that doesn't need anybody else, I truly think their biggest fear is like dying alone. Like, having people surround them, even if it's just acquaintances and stuff. I think they really value that, even though it kind of goes against their like what they put out into the world. They like want to come off as really like cool and collected and I don't need anybody, but then also like deep down they're like terrified of being alone.
Oh man, and is there a reason why she's terrified? Is it more just the sheer aloneness of it, or is there something else that drives that? Like, is she superstitious at all? Is she?
I definitely think so. I think this is a person that spent a fair amount of time, trekking through this environment that we're in, the desert itself, and kind of knows at least a little bit about nature as far as to respect it. And also to fear it. So being in these, spending time out west personally, it was very, changed me a lot, just like going through those big open spaces. And it is very humbling when you're out in the desert with just nothing for miles and miles around. Yeah. So I think that's definitely part of it for Ash.
And with the Deadlands as well, I mean, so we're going to take a bit of a customization, I guess you could say, to the overall lore and canon and whatnot, but it's still, there is going to be some supernatural component because that's how I do. And have you ever run into something? Have you ever seen a ghost? Have you, what makes her so superstitious?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it is even because of the fact that she has spent some time around the native population, or growing up with stories like this as a child, like hearing about the uneasy spirits out there in the desert. Maybe she did have a run-in with one of them at some point. I hadn't really thought too much about that because I wasn't sure exactly what was going on as far as like setting wise goes.
Me neither. It's okay. You run games. You know what that's like when you're starting a campaign, and we've got at this point 3 other campaigns, right? Yeah, going on streams, and I don't want to borrow one from one, so there won't be pus and there won't be that kind of stuff going on. But I really look to the characters to drive the story, and I think like I could picture this character being savvy, not to the point where she's like, oh well, that's a so-and-so and this is how many hit points it has, right? But just that knowledge that we're in danger. I can kind of sense that, hey, that shadowy person that's walking up to the camp, that's not right. We should thing.
Dang it, I almost took danger sense as the edge.
Oh yeah, nice.
I should have done it.
Yeah. Well, hey, there's room for improvement there. I'll put you through some trials that will give you opportunities to do that. So nice. I love it. So, what are you looking forward to most in the overall campaign concept? What are some things that I need to make sure I incorporate? And again, I'm asking some questions that I asked during our meet and greet because of the echoey disaster that we had on the stream. For those of you who saw it, sorry.
I mean, I definitely, the more bullets flying, the better. Obviously,
Awesome.
we want action.
Yeah. At Byron's advice last night, I watched A Magnificent Seven, and my eyes were just this big with all the bullets and the Gatling gun. Man, one of you guys.
Which version is the question, though? Is
I
it
watched
like the old
new
one?
No, I watched a new one. I haven't watched the old one since I had to have watched it when I was about 8 or 9 or something, because it was made in the 60s, I think, right?
Yeah.
And Westerns bored the shit out of me when I was a kid. Well, I love them now, but I was just like, maybe it's because my dad liked it or something. But
you're like, enough of this.
So bullets flying. What else?
I always like the survival elements of games like this, like especially when you're working with a very hostile environment like the desert, or especially one that's now, I guess, has overrun with like creepy creatures and, ghosts and stuff. So always for me, personally, I always am, when I GM a game, I'm kind of lazy about the survival elements for my players because I feel like a lot of them don't like it. But when I get to like right now, I'm very fortunate to be part of like a West Marchers campaign that's all about like resource management. Like we have to like find our iron to make our weapons and stuff. And I'm like, yes. I don't know why this is so exciting for me, but I love resource management and survival.
I love it as well. And it's funny because, back in the day when we gathered around a table, I loved that level of detail in the streams because we kind of come and go and then we're back to our regular lives, and I'm sure you have a huge schedule. I've got a huge schedule. I find it troubling because I'll sit down, a week before the next session and be like, oh my God, I got to go watch the stream to see what the hell happened. I'm not keeping track on my little trackers and my little sheets and shit. What was it? The second edition? Wasn't. It was the first edition. Dungeoneer Survival Guide and the Wilderness Survival Guides. Have you ever seen those books?
I don't know, actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, like they're older like editions.
If you promise not to like spill shit on them, I may have to FedEx them to you because they provide so much unnecessary detail about survival, but it's so awesome. It's so good about like dehydration and fatigue and those kinds of things. Absence of sunlight on the the visual acuity and stuff.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah,
I mean that's the type of stuff. Again, right? It's like depending on what type of game you wanna run. Like there are so many times where I ignore rules like that when I'm GMing for different reasons, like experience level with players who are coming in, what they want to get out of the game, and so sometimes I feel like that stuff takes a back burner. But if you really, I always like to think about, well, like. These characters that we're representing are existing in this, this headspace that we all have. But in reality, if they did exist, like you can't just go out into the desert for like 2 weeks with no supplies, like you will die.
You're absolutely
so
right.
There's always some of that.
What is your position, I just have to ask, on dynamite? Are you okay with dynamite? Because you said bullets.
Yeah.
What about explosions?
Absolutely. I almost put dynamite in the inventory, but then I was like,
just toting some sticks of dynamite. Like, start some shit with me. I dare you. That's amazing.
Yeah. Definitely dynamite.
If there was a message that you could send to your fellow characters from your character, not from Lenora, what would the general sense be? What is something that they definitely would know about you, no matter how long they've known you?
I think they would know that Ash is kind of a dead eye shot. Like, don't mess with Ash because they might not kill you, but they'll definitely put a bullet through your kneecap. So
nice. You
just
like
watch it.
shoot someone's earlobe off on purpose or some shit like that. That's so good.
Yes.
Nice. And hopefully Mike and John will watch these and kind of balance things out. I love the fact that you guys are both, and all four of you could be sharpshooters. You're going to need to be because there's going to be bullets flying everywhere, even on a good day. What have you seen the Ballad of Buster Scruggs? I think you said you had, right?
Yes,
that
absolutely.
That first sequence, I picture that being like your daily breakfast, right? You're just like depopulating the West by having to fight for your supper.
Definitely.
Very cool. Any questions for me? Anything I can help with in getting ready? It seems like you're ready to start rolling some dice.
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely personally probably be spending a lot more time looking over just the rule sets, and still kind of doing my research, getting a feel for the mechanics here. But I don't know. I guess the only question I have is like, because I know we had discussed during the character creation stream, stream. Pretty much shouting into the void. Just I know we had discussed like elements of it being a little bit more steampunk, and I'm just curious how much of that you are going to incorporate. Yeah.
I want to go. I don't want it, and this is just maybe a fault of my imagination. I don't want the characters to exist in a world that's so steampunk that everything is just, everywhere they look, it's just gadgets and shit. The same reason that I don't play high fantasy when I run D&D or Warhammer or whatever. It's lower fantasy, and then the peaks are where the high fantasy comes in. But it's not like, oh, I can fly and I can shoot fire out of my ass. There was that one time, but so I think I want to bring it in heavy, and I want to give you guys access to it, but I don't want it to be like, oh look, a steam powered whatever, and it's just I'm so used to these, like a steam powered blender or some shit I'm gonna make a margarita with. It's got to be think of the steampunk element as when you encounter it, it's almost like magic. It's almost like, where the hell did this come from? But I would love, as the campaign matures, because this is one I think that may run long. I don't think I want to do 20 episodes and just forget about it. I could see these characters really progressing to the point where maybe they're toting all sorts of gadgets and have targeting assistants and all that, that crazy stuff. Yeah, and then should you get to a bigger city, I think that we would probably roll out more of the wondrous, like, whoa, there's a blimp kind of thing. But yeah, I think I'm going to try to balance it out that way and start easy. Wittergren, John, was asking me if he sends me this picture of this guy, and he's got like double Gatling guns or something. And he's like, hey, can I have these? I'm like, fuck no. Why would I give you those? And then I thought about it. I'm like, that would be pretty sweet if you just, I would have to make the first adventures pretty perilous to let my villain survive. But yeah, so that's about it. Awesome. So the other questions that I touch on are more Western movies and Western motifs. And Byron kind of just jumped right in there. But what are some movie moments or things like that, right? That you thought, man, that's so cool. I'm not going to steal them, but just to give me a frame of reference.
Specifically. I mean, well, you referenced the Magnificent Seven already. Obviously, that's just a classic, and that, kind of, I think what makes that just such a kind of a cool, touch, cornerstone of Westerns that I always come back to is how every single one of those, every one of the seven had something different that was just so special about them, and that made them, the man for the job. And I think that's part of why, a lot of Westerns are kind of fun, because there always is, everyone has a little bit of a quirk or a knack or something that they kind of bring to the table, which against all odds, even if it's something as stupid as knowing a coin trick or something, you can kind of use that to kind of leverage a situation or distract somebody at the right moment. So I think the flavor of just having, like you said, character driven stuff happen and moments like that are what make Westerns so fun, because you can kind of play along with those quirks. Or what did I just rewatched? Django Unchained, which is an excellent film. Yes. Terrible and excellent. And I just love I think character quirkiness and movie moments wise, when the bounty hunter uses his stupid bobble tooth dentist thing to pack dynamite in at one point. point, and it's just like such a weird random thing. But
doesn't
so
it seem
good.
like it does seem like something though that a player would do in a game, right? Having run games where you're just like, you're gonna do what? And then you think about it, you're like, okay, that works. James and Eric, the two players that I played Pathfinder, I played a little bit of 5th edition, tons of games with those guys. They're both that way. The shit they come up with, you're like, oh, I didn't plan for that at all. All right, fine. All the villains die because you're smart, and I'm gonna end this early, and we can go to lunch.
Yeah, harebrained
really awesome.
schemes are, I think, my favorite part of any tabletop, and like, especially being a game master, when your players present you with something that you're just like, all right,
you just want to rage quit and stomp out of the room. You're like, ah!
Sometimes, but it also it fills me with such a joy where I'm like, wow, you really took the time to break the game, didn't you?
Yes. I played a wizard once, and we had a couple moments like that. A dear friend of mine, James Walker, and a guitar player I used to play with back in the day. And there were a few where he was just so angry with me. And I'm like, I mean, if it's not permissible, fine. But I think it is. And one in particular was, he was just mad at one of the other players. He's like, I'm just going to kill you guys. You fall into this giant pit or whatever, and we're down there. And I had stone to flesh and flesh to stone, right? You could reverse spells back in the day. I'm like, and I just asked him just on the fly. I was like, so what would happen if I cast stone to flesh on just a rock? And he's like, well, it would manifest this glob of just flesh.
Ooh.
And I'm like, okay. So I sat down and I learned that, and I did, and we cooked it and we ate. But what was happening is the flesh that was displaced, right? Because you cast that on a stone wall, and then you dig it out to create your little meal. It was so gross, right? But I'm like, I know I did that at an upward angle. And it was just like he goes, well, and he should have had us dehydrate and die. He didn't catch that. But it's like I dug our way out by casting, because I was a high-level wizard at the time, basically stone to flesh, and then digging the flesh out, cooking some and eating it, and then we climbed out. He was so angry.
It's such an uncomfortable and just unsettling way to survive that situation.
So gross. And I love those moments where you're just like, oh, that's super gross, and I'm gonna dream, I'm gonna have nightmares about that.
Yeah,
very cool.
Oof,
I cannot wait.
It's certainly an image.
I cannot wait to start, and so hopefully we'll kick off sometime, maybe sort of June, mid to late June. We'll get through the other character creation. I want to do the audio drama bit, and then we're going to do a session where all of us are on, and we'll talk about bonds. And typically what I have the players do is roll against a random table twice, and they get a result, and then they get to assign that bond to whichever other character they'd like. You can't change the bond, whatever it is, however awkward it might be. There was one in the Tides of Nurgle campaign where two characters basically are aware that they more or less, their what's the word I'm looking for, their negligence resulted in the death of one of the caravan people, and they know this, and so they get a little bit of a bonus in certain situations where they have to kind of come together. So do that, and then we'll kick off probably late June, early July maybe, and then we'll play like every day for the next 3 years.
I mean, that's the dream, right? Like, if you could get everybody together to actually play.
Yeah, for sure. And I do appreciate you being flexible with schedule, because stuff happens.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's any time, just a couple days in advance, and probably shift stuff around. So I'm here when you need me.
And you're playing D&D tonight? Are you streaming, or are you just getting together with the people at your place, or what are you doing?
We're just doing everything online right now on Roll20, obviously because of quarantine and stuff. So it's been pretty fun, though, learning how to use Roll20, and not streaming necessarily. I think, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of energy right now to devote to setting that up for my campaigns, although someday, and I think after all of this kind of switch to the online platform, I'm hoping that in the near future maybe I can start to get a stream up, because I would love to share the narrative, and I think a lot of the players that I've been lucky enough to kind of get involved in over the last few years, we're getting to that point where everybody's pretty tight with each other. The RP happens so naturally, and then again, they always find like fun and interesting ways to tell such fun instances and storytelling, and then also break my games by doing absolutely ridiculous stuff. So yeah, I'm just playing tonight, but looking forward to it.
So if you get to the point where you're ready to kick off your stream, I will happily hand over the stream key and let you use the MythBrigade channel and stream through that and have all whatever viewers we happen to have and all that good stuff, because we don't have a D&D game, and I would absolutely love to play or just produce and sit back and watch.
For sure. It's one of those things too, like I think technically I tried to transition this campaign that I'm running from being like a more hardcore, like me DMing it campaign, to having it be like a West Marches style where different people would run different dungeons. And I've had one person run a different dungeon where I got to be a player character. So it is fun because I'm trying to do more of that. But I feel like even though I've made that kind of push to be like, hey, do you guys want to run a game or two? They still come back and they're like, oh, we just loved playing in your campaign. I'm like, great.
That's so awesome. Yeah. Cool. I love so Rivers.
It's very flattering. No complaints from me, but also just, again, I sometimes like to be a player character as well because I like to kill stuff too.
Exactly. Rivers from the Tides of Nurgle group is talking about running a couple of different games, and he's like super prolific gamer. So we're gonna work something out, and he'll run a game. Eric, I'm talking to him about doing something on the channel, mainly just so I'd have an opportunity to play, but also just and exactly what you said is there's this technical side of things, like, oh, I probably need to figure out this fucking driver issue with this road thing, when I should be just focusing on the story, because if they're showing up at your house, well, you don't have to set your house up or anything. You just show up, give them some chips, and off we go. And it's not that way with the streams for sure. But we are super happy to have you aboard. And that is a fantastic coffee cup, by the way. What is going on with it? It has legs?
Oh yeah, it's a cat.
Nice. Well, you're holding it sideways. So it's absolutely cool. It's just got legs and arms. That's amazing. Outstanding. Lenora, thank you so much. We are all set with Ash, and I will ask that you send me a copy of the character sheet just so I can familiarize myself with all the ins and outs of the character and be ready to represent with hidden roles and things. Totally. Awesome. So 2 out of 4 done, ladies and gentlemen, for the Savage Worlds campaign here at MythBrigade Saloon. Thank you for tuning in now or later. Bye.